Greetings, fellow travelers, and welcome to The Way of the Showman, where we view the world through the lens of showmanship. I am Captain Frodo, and I will be your host and your guide along the way, as we continue to explore J. Gilligan's obsession with Mystere. But of course, this is just a jumping-off point to understand art itself, and the deeper we delve into it, the more we learn both about Jay and about Mystere. But I would, of course, like to look at it, and we're going to do that today, but we do it even more so in the final of these episodes, episode 4, which comes next week, where we look at the show as a sacred object. And what can we learn from really knowing a whole lot about one thing? This is a theme, of course, that echoes throughout all of the 140 episodes or so of The Way of the Showman. By mastering the craft of performance, by being someone who faces the other way to the audience with something enjoyable and enlivening to show to the others, we become masters of this one particular thing because we spend so much time thinking about it. And it's with this in mind that I would like to look at Mystere, not just as a specific show in a specific casino in Las Vegas, but rather as a picture of performing itself. And I hope you can join along with me and Jay as we explore Mystere in just such a way. So, last time we ended up talking about the world that has disappeared and trying to put people into the frame of mind of what it was like to actually experience this for the first time in 1994, which when it opened at Christmas 1993, you were still within the first months of it before it's been there for a year of it happening. Yeah. So you experienced the Michael Motion act in the show. Yeah. As it was in its pure form, before they had taken solos. The applause moments came in, and then when later was it that the applause moments came in?
I mean, I think it was pretty quickly because there was
in '94.
There was the fight with Steve Wynn, so there was some ego trip.
Amazing, and of course, the guy La Liberté he's the head of everything, but from the microscopic stuff that I know, he is not necessarily a hands-on kind of guy that is in the creation room and is telling, I think, no, arms needs to be further up or further down.
Yeah, I think already by then he's more in the bar, hanging out, making the power deals. Oh, yeah. Like already back then, I think that was his vibe. I don't know for sure.
Which is, it's at the time when I remember when I had my first encounters with managers or whatever. And having this epiphany with working with Scott Maidment from Stratton Fret, that he thrives in that situation too, and it's after the shows and talking to the people and making the deals in the moments where I am cringing and at the time just want to be backstage and hang out, and people are
100%
like, I didn't feel comfortable there, and he has he's a creative guy and does amazing stuff as well. Now, but at that time he wasn't doing as much hands-on producing as what he's doing now. I mean, that's probably a generalization, but anyway, just seeing somebody who thrives at just that thing. And Cirque du Soleil started just after Circus Oz, and their shared, their divergent ideas of what a show is has led Circus Oz to where it is now, which is quite obscure in really, and Cirque du Soleil gone in the other direction because they did have someone like him who brokered multi-million casino building deals. Which, I don't know any stories about him either, but it's like, as much as he can say, this is my thing and I created it, maybe in some ways, at least that golden era that I also fell in love with, it was in particularly one creator, because of course it was the sound and it was the staging and everything, but the thing that where my heart lies most is with the performers and the actual expression of circus in a way that I didn't understand, and that was Franco Dragone, who was the creator of all of that. So you got some stories about actual creation when somebody was there and was directed, and how they came up with. We have spoken a little bit about the baby with the red ball that has been mentioned, and you mentioned almost like a sort of joke on the TripAdvisor thing. There was a big baby and a big snail. I don't get this. I hate it. Yeah. So just some of those kind of images that are iconic for this show, and what the hell is going on there?
No, well, so with Franco, I don't have too many behind the scenes stories. The only thing I can say in general that I remember, because I've forgotten more about Mystere than you will ever know. Like literally, just over 31 years, my memory is terrible. I used to know way more than I know now. I didn't write it down, but I do know that he's not easy to work with. Apparently, it's like the rumor. Like he likes to yell and scream a lot. I did start to interview people for a new project I'm working on about the creation of Nouvelle Experience. I've interviewed 2 or 3 people who went through that creation, and the stories about Franco, I have to say, are not very pleasant, just to say. And it's the same, pretty much same era as Mystere. And I know in general, he had this reputation of just screaming at people. And if we want to look for more like maybe fun or concrete evidence or whatever the creation was like, I mean, one thing Mystere did besides filming, Cirque du Soleil did besides filming all of their shows, was that they often made behind-the-scenes documentaries, even going back all the way to Nouvelle Experience. And most of those you can find on YouTube these days, though some are kind of obscure. But there's a lot of footage of Franco in the creation of, like, Quidam, for example. But also I have a couple of clips of Franco staging the micro-motion piece in Mystere. And mostly it's just Franco on a microphone on the stage, and the actors are always improvising, the performers are always improvising, and it's Franco kind of screaming out directions, and kind of Franco surveying the scene as it's playing out, and then kind of encouraging people to, okay, yeah, Frodo, you're giving me that look, like, look more, look over here. No, now go over there and kill the rabbit. And like kind of in the moment. So I know he generally liked to work with improvisation and kind of build the scenes from what the performers were giving him in the moment. I don't think he was so preconceived. For sure he had images he started with, but then there's all these interviews with him, but basically he always says, like, I want it to come from the performer, and I want to see who you really are. And he has all these theater exercises, and I don't know much about Franco. I know he came from this theater background, and he has this whole devising technique, and I'm sure other people are really
I just saw
technically into
that he was working with theater students also in Belgium, and that he was at also, like, before they got on to work with him, that he was working at a circus school in Belgium as well, introducing theater to them. So he did have a specific kind of experience with mixing theater and circus, and that was one of the big things that he had. But
in all the documentaries I've seen of him working, he always says, I work with images and emotions.
Yeah.
And basically he just works with images that evoke emotion. And again, it's that kind of nebulous, like it provokes an emotion, but like maybe not so concretely with a concrete meaning, but it's provoking some sort of something inside of you when you see the image, and then you're kind of in your own mind maybe putting things together, or at least riding that wave of the feeling or something.
Yeah. And the interesting thing then is that I don't know so much about him, but I did work with him on the show. What? He was the director.
What show?
It was.
What are you talking about?
And now
was it Mystere?
I should have researched.
You were in Mystere?
No, it was Franco Dragone directs Captain Frodo in the show. Never realized. No, it was not. It was in 2007, I think it was, on the second year that La Clique, as we were called then, went to Montreal for the Juste pour Rire, Just for Laughs festival.
Yeah.
And the first year there had been a show where they also have this huge gala, 3,500 seats gala or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is that first year that I was there, I was I asked ahead of time and signed 2 contracts to both be in the French version of that and in the English version of it. And the English version of that show, anyway, one was hosted by John Cleese. So I was in the show that was hosted by John Cleese.
Of course.
And then the second take of that thing was hosted by George Costanza, who now I'm from Seinfeld, who I now can't, I don't know why.
Jason Alexander.
Jason Alexander.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he hosted that second show. And then the next year, this cabaret show, or so grand TV spectacle that was put on by Joubert, the guy who owns the festival and all this, and it was a circus-style show directed by Franco Dragone. Huge production to do, I don't know how many shows they did there, but it was always sold out and filmed to be on TV as well. So with a bigger budget, because it even at 3,500 theater with several tiers, it was huge. Even then, I'm sure they, once you hire Franco Dragone or you hire John Cleese, who comes out and is going like, well, you know, I have just had this terrible divorce which has led me to be here at this stage in some hack town in the middle of nowhere, having to plow through this comedy one more time. and it was brilliant. He was brilliant. But anyway, then the next year we got there, and there was all these performers that we knew from before and some that we met that was in town to be in this big circus show. And then La Clique was playing and kicking ass. We got to Montreal, and our show was like the second coming of Christ, because Cirque had just been doing all their things and all, and then we came in with this screaming authenticity that our show had, this individuality of the different performers and everything, and we were lauded in the paper, which is why we came back and did the second run and the year after. So it was very good the first year, and the second year you were afraid, how is it going to go on the second return? It was just as good, and it was amazing. And Franco had started their creation over at the big theater. Okay. And we were doing our small show, and he had, and we knew from knowing people, Otto Wesley, the magician, the crazy German magician, and Danny and Adina, who did the crazy rollerball act. They were the people that we knew before it started. And they invited us to come and look, and told some stories and gone, oh, it's rough. So what you were saying about yelling and all of that, it was like that. Wow. And we met some Japanese, was it a Japanese Diablo guy who we got to talk to because of Dennis in the show, one of the English gents who speaks fluent Japanese and whatever. Anyway, just halfway through some of these rehearsals, there was just being screamed, and this dude was fired on mic and told that to just go home. And they did. They got him a new ticket and sent him home before the show had happened. And then at some point, after Franco had seen La Clique, then he came back. I'm just telling a story or whatever, but then he came back the next day, and then he said, I don't want this, what you have given me. Okay. So what we're going to do is that we are everything that's in the second half, and I'm rejumbling the things, taking the people out of the first half and we're putting them into the second, and then La Clique will be the opening half of this show. Wow. And Joubert, who had hired it and everything, and we all negotiated new deals and whatever. So for that, we did this, and it wasn't all of the shows. It wasn't all of La Clique. I see. It was a bunch of us, me, David O'Meara, and the English gents. And
wow, this is incredible.
So we went over there and did versions, usually almost straight. But the reason also why it ended up being in the first half was that we had shows. Yeah. We had an already existing season. Sure. So then Joubert lined up cars to drive us from one theater to the next. So we warmed up in our space and did everything and put costumes on. Right. Got picked up, driven over to the big theater, go in the back, walked straight in and do all the stuff. Yeah. And the order was a little bit with we could have the bath late because he closed the
I
thing.
see.
I was early on in my first act in the first half. So,
I see.
so there was several cars taking us back and forth to fit it in.
Amazing.
And
so did Franco ever say anything to you then after that kind of major surgery on his thing?
No. So they were doing the thing, well, how are you normally introduced? And I said, well, I just came up. But the thing here now is that he treated me with complete respect for the whole thing.
Wow.
In every way. Like, he just sort of accepted and had found me as this sort of jewel of, like, I saw it in this place. I want that on my stage, which felt, of course, unbelievable at the time. Yeah. And still does. And he brought it in. And the main thing was that he didn't, because there was another crazy scene that happened beforehand. Yeah. And the only direction that he did for me was that he didn't want me to shout and say, "Here comes Captain Frodo," so because that was not his style. Yeah. So the previous scene ended, and there was a hat stand, and there were some things in there, and I was to go in my tennis costume with the rackets and sort of hide behind the thing, because there was a bit of a madhouse theme of the first thing. So there was people in white coats and like lunatic asylum kind of thing. So they were taking people in and out and whatever. I can't remember the details because we didn't get any video, didn't get any. So we did these 10 shows or something in here whilst we were already doing a sold out season in the other thing. So he directed me to come over, but he was sitting in the audience and he had an assistant that was on stage. Yeah. So he would say things. Yeah. And then without talking more to Dragone, he would sort of translate and go, so try some of these things or so. So there was and maybe the whole thing with me only lasted like maximum half an hour or so, of where he told me to go in and looked at my act a little bit and so, but didn't do any changes of it. Also because that was the scope of the show. He was to create framing and not create individual acts. And he was also then he focused more attention on the second act, which I never actually got to see. Yeah. The second half. Yeah, you had to go which perform. Was now half the performers, pretty much. So so about what happened in those other ones, which from my friends there, I knew that it was rough. Yeah. And Otto Wesley ended up performing with us in Paris a lot, his crazy magic or whatever. Yeah. And he was also untouched by Dragone. I see. So somehow the authenticity of him, and I don't know if it's me that I attracted towards and cultivate the friendships with the people where you feel like there is something here that is genuine, and that also that Dragone saw that. So him and his funny wife Krista, who they accentuate her ugliness and eccentricity in her act. She's such a weirder even when she's in the show, like. That he just bought it and it was fine, and they were like in this bubble and not being screamed at. But when he saw something that he didn't like, I think it was unpleasant. And the fact that he comes in and can do that he says, "This doesn't speak to me. I want this show, and I take it here and I put it inside my creation because I want this kind of stuff, and then we can take them on another journey in the second half."
Oh my God!
So that's my story with
I mean, there is this documentary about Soleil where Franco's being interviewed and he says, sometimes they say I scream too much, and then it cuts. So I mean, he was obviously self-aware too of of what he was doing. I don't know,
but sometimes that also, as much as I've been in other shows or so where people have been like that, and I have been the guy of being Dragone's assistant. Right. When somebody is stomping their feet quite literally and being angry. Yeah. And on bad occasions, people have been crying. Yeah. Then I have been there needing then to pick up the pieces and to continue the thing. Yeah. But also my nice guy approach of doing it. I'm also then using that in difficult situations when an artist is holding on to something which is not, as far as me and the producer then are it's not serving the whole. then I can also use that as the good cop, bad cop routine. Where
Yeah,
you go to the point that every now and then it would come when I would say something for soiree or for the show, a production, where I would say something, and then the performer might say, "Is this coming from you?"
Right.
Or is it coming from management?
Yeah.
And I can then go, well, management says these are the criterias. Like working with Dennis's Bubble Act.
Right.
Well, he did one show before I started creating with him, and it was a long thing, and he didn't say anything and whatever. And then the Brett Haylock had in his mind, it's gone like, it needs to be 3-4 minutes tight, just the way that it is. And then we were talking a lot with Dennis, and we were trying to make it, and Bubbles is a slow thing.
Yeah.
And I kind of went, well, we need to cut it so that it is shorter. It can't be longer than the tennis act, because it's such a slow thing in the whole show and whatever. But if we make something which is 6 minutes, even if it's the first one, like on the first showing to him, show it so it feels significantly shorter. If you then add in one more bubble or so later, because they need to get to feel the thing, and if it's kicking ass, no one is going to ask anything.
Yeah.
But if they're unsure about it and it feels slow on top of it, then you go. So then I had my tactics of talking directly to artists and going, we're doing now, which is like I'm speaking my action plan, because I believe in what you're doing. But I also believe that there is something in it. There's a reason why I am selling 300 tickets during this whole season of my solo show.
Yeah.
And this dude in the same festival sells 35,000.
Well, I mean, that's so cool. You got to work with Franco, and I don't know about him screaming, but there is a story that maybe kind of ties that together with, you were talking about the snail earlier.
Yeah.
Because there's a snail in Mystere called Alice, and originally when the show opened, there were 3 babies, actually. Now they kind of quickly cut the third baby.
Because there's 2. There's the
2
big
babies.
baby there, and then there's
the little girl baby.
Girl baby.
Yeah, but there used to be 3 babies.
That girl baby's a little more acrobatic, isn't she?
Yeah. So when the show opened, there was 3 baby carriages on stage when you come into the theater. Now there's two baby carriages there.
Baby carriage in O as well.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
So then the snail, it grows in size during the original version of the production, which they basically cut out of the show now. But basically, it was a little pull toy, like on the floor on wheels, like a little snail with a little rope on it that the baby girl would pull around during the show. And then at one point, you would see in the transition before the half dome for the hand-to-hand from the Eve and Mario did this act when it first started, the shows first started. And then it was actually I always say their name wrong, the Labrador brothers from Saltimbanco, the hand Marco Polo.
Big, strong, slow.
Yeah, the strong, yeah. But so then the snail head would peek out of the pit, and it would kind of show its head. So they had a little prop that was basically a snail head on a stick, and the snail head was couple meters, 3 meters big. I mean, it was a huge snail head, and they would kind of from the pit they would and then show the face to the audience, like all of a sudden the snail is growing larger. And they had other kind of deconstructed snail parts too. They had a tail at one point. I don't know. But anyway, then at the end of the show comes, like, kind of the punchline of the entire show is a gigantic snail. And
gigantic, how big? Like, what's the size of this snail?
I mean, I don't know, like, how embarrassing that you asked me. I should know. I should know the measurements.
Is it? But is it?
No. But
is it a 2 high or is it a 3 high of people? Or so is it a 4 high?
Yeah, like 3 high. I mean, it's like
it's like 6 meters,
6 meters, and then like 7 meters long or something.
Yeah.
But it's an inflatable shell, so it's like a kind of the slug part of the snail is like a construction.
Yeah, like a hoverboat kind of thing.
Yeah, with like the wheels underneath it or something. And then but the shell itself, this big spiral shell, it's inflatable.
Yeah.
And then so the snail's name's Alice. And so Benny Legrand used to be this clown Wayne, whose stage name Benny Legrand. Benny Legrand was in a bunch of Cirque du Soleil shows in the early years. And he used to be the clown in the show in Mystere for many years. he actually got fired for a really funny thing, or not funny thing apparently. But his pre-show, and I witnessed this in person many times going to see the show, his pre-show consisted of walking around the theater when the audience was coming in, and he had a big pair of scissors, and I mean a big pair of scissors, but like real scissors, not like a prop, but like actual sharp scissors.
Yeah, so just a foot long, not like novelty size made out of plastic.
But like serious scissors.
Wow.
And he would walk up to men who were dressed in a suit and a tie, which people used to do back in the back in the 90s to go see a show. Like you kind of dressed up to go see Mystere. It was kind of that kind of thing. Huh. I mean, it was a top ticket price, and it was a night out on the town. It was like a serious thing, you know? And he would walk up to a guy who was wearing a suit, and he would put the scissors underneath the knot of the necktie and snip the tie. He would cut the tie. That was the bit. That was the gag. That was it. And then he would walk away. And of course people would see it. And I mean, they had a spotlight on him and stuff. It was like, opening show animation stuff.
Wow.
And that was the bit, though. That was the gag.
That's confronting.
And then one day he snipped the wrong guy's necktie.
And was it someone famous, or just somebody powerful, or somebody who was...
He was somebody powerful and rich who sued Treasure Island and sued Mystere and sued Cirque du Soleil.
For damages.
Yeah, or whatever it was. And then basically the fallout was basically like, in the end, he was placated, this guy.
Scapegoated.
By, I mean, the guy who got the necktie, he was kind of like calmed down. And the bargain was they would fire Benny Legrand.
Wow.
So that's how Benny got fired.
So but he was doing his job, but the company kind of went, we need to protect ourselves and whatever.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the details. I just know.
No, but they also needed to this guy go. They could always go, oh, he is a crazy guy, that guy. He always does something. And then he did that to you. I don't know.
Wow. So anyway, but back to Franco screaming and Alice the Snail and Benny Legrand. So apparently... when the show opened, around then there was a bunch of press, and there was a infamous newspaper interview with Benny Legrand, where the interviewer had been talking about the creation of the show and what's the show like and this and that, and then they had seen the show, and they said to Benny like, yeah, by the way, at the end of the show there's this huge snail that comes out. What's that about? And Benny had made some sort of remark of like, well, that was about this big bowl of cocaine that we had backstage when we created the show. And kind of as a joke, but from what I recall, there was maybe some cocaine floating around the creation. So I'm not saying that Franco was like doing cocaine and directing the show, but I'm also not saying he wasn't doing cocaine and directing the show. And I don't know if that contributes to him, like, being manic, which apparently he was manic many times.
Yeah, well.
But who knows if everybody was hopped up on cocaine or not.
Did this have consequences though when he said that?
Oh yeah, so there was like there was a huge backlash. Like, obviously, the company was like, you can't go to the newspaper.
You can't joke about it. And
no, but I also don't think Benny was joking. I think he was straight up like, yeah, well, we were like,
but if you're the crazy guy that cuts neckties off, you could end up joking about that.
Yeah, you could try to play it off as a joke,
but the company went, this is not okay.
Oh no, especially back, like, no way.
It's never okay. Of course,
no,
it's never okay to do it at all, but to mention it or whatever, like it's a crazy thing that it was.
And I mean, speaking of Mystere and drugs, though, I do remember a couple of things which Pat told me. So there was this Korean plank act, and the Korean plank, at the end of the act, they would do a 4 high, and they had a bunch of other, like, there was I think there was at one point a double back to a 3 high, and these things. And Pat said a lot of these, like I said, they got these world-class performers to go to Vegas, and these days. Vegas, I mean, me, I love Vegas.
Yeah.
But, like, it's kind of a hotbed of, like, talented people. It's not crazy to be a great performer in Vegas, like having your life there.
Yeah.
There's thousands of performers there now with all the Soleil shows.
Yeah.
But back in 93, it was the only show in town. So they had all of these great world-class performers in Mystere who were bored out of their minds being in Vegas. They couldn't take it because, I mean, the town, there just wasn't people around any back then. And so Pat said drug use became pretty rampant. Also because they had the disposable income to buy drugs, like from the salary, and they were in one place.
And no doubt they were easy to obtain as well. So
exactly. So then you're in Vegas.
People come there, and it's like the capital of hedonism as much as it's
Yeah.
entertainment now
Yeah.
as well. When you look at what's
Totally.
the billboards of what's driving up and down the roads there with the dispensaries for marijuana or for girls on the thing, it's like it's everything that the church has warned you
There
about.
you go. So they had money and access. So a lot of the acrobats got into cocaine, and maybe if we put those stories together, maybe that's from the creation. But he told me more than one time, like not all the time, but like not just one isolated incidents, but sometimes the acrobats would come off stage after the Korean plank act in like with their ear hanging off the side of their head, because they'd be so hopped up on cocaine they hadn't noticed that when they caught the flyer on the 3 high or 2 high or whatever, that the person's foot had like ripped their ear off to the point where it's like hanging off their head and it's just like blood. He said it happened a few times. Like they'd come off stage and he'd be like, dude, your ear is like hanging off your head. They're like, what? Because they're just all like completely high.
Wow.
And that's how they would get through the day. That's eventually, I don't want to speak for Pat, but I know he really struggled in that environment, being around people who were so nihilistic and, just self-destructive.
But then that act was moved out of the show?
So they eventually changed the Korean plank to a proper teeter board, and I don't know much about the technical difference other than I think a teeter board is a little bit shorter and more stiff, and it throws you a bit higher than a Korean plank, which is a bit slower and bigger. At some point, but that didn't happen until like the mid 2000s or something.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, who knows how many acrobats they rotated through.
Anyway, these rumors are like also one of the things that we all know about any level of the entertainment industry. Whatever kind of abuse that there is of drinking or so, when you're doing just one concert at night,
right?
Like look at Keith Richards, and
right.
It's like that he is alive is a miracle,
Mm-hmm.
but that these things are going on, and also this thing that you're rock stars and you're coming to Vegas and you're these crazy stars performing in the most absurd show or whatever, and you be treated like a star. A lot of it has where those things are on offer, and it takes certain people, that's their ruin. They lose their career.
Yeah.
If people don't in that industry at that time maybe there now. This is a complete no-go with most companies, and it's like whether you are in the casino where these are like where you literally are like in the way that it is in America, that you have to pee in a cup and stuff. So like with Cirque and all those things, it's like maybe a completely different story as it has moved into a whole different realm and the corporatization of everything and these things of health and safety and everything. It's like the amount of stuff that we had to do on that first day when I arrived at Mad Apple is next level as well of what they do to protect it. But anyway,
one thing I thought was really fun. I mean, I'm such a naive dude. I don't drink or do drugs or anything, smoke anything. But I didn't think about it. But culturally, Cirque du Soleil became a mainstream success. And because they became commercially successful just in general as a company, it did afford the financial ability for their artists to buy drugs, just in general. And that phenomena, because before that, circus people were kind of broke. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like you could kind of do that rock star lifestyle of like, I'm just going to be rich and like buy drugs and have this kind of nonstop party, which I'm not saying that circus people didn't party before, but just to have that level of stability of like financial like income, just to like be a drug addict or something on a party level of like going out and all the crazy Cirque du Soleil parties they used to have back in the day with like how much money they would spend in Gila Liberté. I mean, that's how he met George Harrison, who they got into the Beatles show and stuff. Like that's how they did that collaboration, because he had a big party. I mean, it was a party company back in the day. Yeah. And so
I mean, it's also not to be poo-pooed the role of lifestyle and excess and fun and larger than life and all that of so like you say, you're in, maybe love wouldn't have happened. And how long did that last? 20 years? 18? 20?
No, about 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So you have a show
which is still 10 years.
Which have been
it's
doing
crazy.
10 shows a week.
Yeah.
50 weeks of the year for 10 years.
Yeah.
That's like a suitcase full of shows. No, that's a lot of shows. But it's like, and the truth of the matter, I think, is that people drinking cocktails or whatever they're doing, sitting in the corner, having a conversation at the time when they're both excited about having seen the circus and excited about the show and excited about the concert, rock and roll, whatever it is that's been going on. Yeah. Those conversations where somebody sit there and literally go, oh man, what would be cool would be to take the music that you made, George Harrison, imagine this, you do this, and that it literally is in those pictures where the whole livelihood of so many wonderful artists who worked with Cirque's Love, just to keep making up shit about that show that I know nothing about, but I know I know two of the fools in that show who played the fool on the hill. First, Jolly Goodfella, Rumpelstiltskin, and then Nate Cooper. Yeah, like how and that's just one role in one show over a few years each, and then looking at what that show offered, and maybe it actually came down to a real moment when two people were partying and the right things were said and the right frame of mind was there. So for all this Hollywood excess and for what Keith Richards has developed through the whole affordance of being a rock star, like it's interesting. Anyway, it's because in one way it is literally people that used to be in the show that can't be in it anymore because their drinking has affected them so much that that line that we go, no one's really telling anyone what to do because everybody likes to party, but when it starts to infringe on your ability to do your act, that's when that's where this sort of red line comes. If you're not in a corporate world where it just says if you test positive, then you're fired. So, which is another sort of level or whatever. But there's at those parties some of the most crazy things. For all we know, Mystere is in there because...
But I think Mystere too was also because they hadn't had a permanent show yet. They didn't have a resident show that was just ongoing, open-ended run. And you're also learning as a producer and as an artist what it means to do 10 shows a week for a year, for example. I mean, of course, they've been touring Saltimbanco, Nouvelle Experience, we reinvent the circus, but that's not that's different than 10 shows a week in the same place, just week out, you know.
Boredom is a force of evolution, I think. Maybe I've mentioned this before or whatever. But the fact that we're bored, human beings get very easily bored, and we then decide to go, what is actually behind that hill? And then eventually you go there and you find, oh, this is good. I'm going to set up in this cave. Here's also a cave. And then your kids will at some point go, this is boring. What's going on over there? And that's creates a steady migration out of Africa and all the way down to Australia in the first wave, and then all the way up into Europe and everywhere else in the second wave or whatever. And there is a steady increase, or you can follow where you find the archaeological diggings of the paleo-humans who were going out. You can find them dating back, so you see that they were moving at a kind of, when you look at it in hindsight, and you go, every 5,000 years they would have moved 5,000 kilometers or whatever. So they move roughly 1 kilometer a year, but in pulses or whatever.
Right.
So it's like, and that boredom is an actual force of creation and of affecting your behavior. And if you're always touring, which we were doing with La Clique, where we go to the next town and we go to the next, same tent, but you open those curtains and you look out the backstage, it would be a different town.
Yeah.
It's like Sydney, and then we were in Montreal, and then we were in London, and then the town would change, but the crew and the circus would be the same, and that is an exciting kind of thing. So then, but if you're in a show and all of a sudden you're in the business of doing 10 shows a week, which is not that's not a trivial thing to deal with. And we've spoken about this before, you being on stage and literally going like, I can't remember if this is my first or second show. And me doing street shows in Edinburgh, doing it on Fringe Sunday, we're doing lots of shows, and I'm going and I'm almost finished. So I'm about to just say, thank you, I'm out of the straitjacket, I've done the rackets and I'm out. And I go, did I say anything to you about money?
Yeah.
And I
Right.
actually get the response going, no. And I go, oh, I'm supposed to have said. And then I do my bottling speech right towards the end. And normally I don't do this in the end. But anyway, here's my hat. That was my art. Come forward.
Yeah.
Like where you're confused as to what's going on.
Yeah.
And, Groundhog Day, basically. So,
Yeah.
So that is when with shows that I've been on too, which have had long residencies, those people who are prone to fall off, to fall off the circus wagon and get on another wagon to such an extent that they need to alter their ways, or that they now go, well, what do you do? Oh, I don't drink. Oh yeah, full time? Yeah, it's pretty much a full-time occupation now, just not drinking.
Yeah.
And then I do my job like that, but I'm now needing to spend a lot of energy on that. So that is a real life thing. And I think when you do those long seasons, lot of repetition, lot of nights, because you're in that culture, and every time anybody comes to see you, it's like a festival, it's a party. It's the most amazing thing. They're going, what, a big snail, and then you come out at the top end and go, was that you in there when they like that encounter where you're in a party or in a dimension of extraordinary experience. So whenever you're encountering people, it's like crazy. And for you that becomes, after a while, you need something else, which is like you read the Dirt, or you read these books of the rock stars who basically gone, in the end I couldn't have a normal thing unless there was like 11 girls and a dog and a box full of crazy toys. And that's that I wasn't interested. Like sort of you've jacked everything up until there's nothing left of what's real or whatever. So I could see that. And where else to experience the edges of that than Las Vegas?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean that is the town, right?
Yeah.
Well, I just have a few little like random reflections maybe to say about Mystere before I forget them. Just not a good segue into anything, but last time I was in Vegas, when I was visiting you last Easter, I went to Mystere and took a tour of the theater, and I went down to the pit where I talked about the stage going down. So it's the pit down there. I went down under where the stage goes down, and I met a guy named Monster. He said his name was Monster. He was a bit older, and he said he used to be a stagehand for Siegfried and Roy. So that was kind of a cool little like moment of coming together of Siegfried and Roy had innovated this new production show, and then Mystere was kind of the symbol of another style of new production show, and Monster had kind of worked on both, and he was running the pit automation, the pressing the button to go up and down and taking care of the lifts and everything. That was pretty amazing to meet Monster down there. And also I remember, because I didn't see Mystere on video or anything before I saw it in person the first time, and I told you about the stage lowering for the first time, but I did know, because I was really keeping up with all the news and the rumors and stuff. I was really into Soleil. And I know a worker died making the theater because fell into the pit.
Oh, wow.
And so and I'm not saying that when I was in the theater and the stage went down, I was like, oh, someone died. But I don't know, there was some sort of like, there was something there. I knew these details before I went. There was some sort of context unconsciously in me. Yeah. I'm like, that pit's, maybe it's a little bit dangerous. Like, I know a worker like fell in and died. And also talking about falling into the pit and things. So one thing Soleil did with Mystere, which is kind of funny, looking back now with the longevity of the company, but I think they kind of tried to make Mystere a little bit of a greatest hits, because before Mystere they were really trying not to repeat acts in different shows, because again the touring circuit I think was much smaller. You'd have a 2-year maybe life cycle of a show, and you're going to go back to the same New York, Chicago, LA, whatever. So you don't want to have the next show look like the past show, and they really tried to make the acts different every year. And so one thing was looking good.
No.
I
think these have stopped working.
Oh, okay.
So let's stop this just a second here. No, the microphones, the lights are off them as well.
Maybe the battery ran out.
Probably run out of battery, but that's okay. I'm just stopping that, and this is still recording. So either I'll swap to this now, or we'll whatever. We can take these off.
Okay. So, yeah, but we're good here?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
all still going. So,
Okay.
and I'm just going to push record on this one. Yep. Oh, that had started on that one. So I'm doing this, and now we're back with these two. All right. Good stuff.
No, so before Mystere, they were really, I think, being a little bit more careful to not repeat any material. So if you have Chinese pole in one show, like Saltimbanco,
We're not going to have that in the next show.
they're not going to put it in Allegria or whatever. Yeah. But Mystere was kind of an exception. It was like, well, we're doing a residency, and they had actually done a little bit of a kind of a greatest hits where they took a show called Fascination, which was a mashup between Nouvelle Experience and Saltimbanco. Fascination played in Japan for like a very short time, and Chris Lashua, who he did flatland BMX freestyle bike. He was in Fascination. He became a lighting technician in Mystere, and in his free time he learned German wheel. And then they put him into Quidam as the opening act of the show. And then, of course, Chris Lashua went on to make his company Cirque Mechanics, which is kind of a fun little story there. But so with Mystere, they had this kind of, in one way, greatest hits of the whole company, of like a retrospective of Cirque, which is kind of, like, I get it, they've been around since 84, so for them, 93, that's like a long time, and for me too. But now looking back from then, it's like a retrospective in 93 of...
Yeah, when you're almost 10 years old.
Yeah, but so in Mystere, they put a bunch of stilt walking, because Cirque du Soleil actually started with a bunch of stilt walkers, Gilles St. Croix, and there's the famous walk he did across Canada or whatever on the stilts. And so they had these four-legged stilt creatures. And so Patrick and Steven and Jean, they had to do different cues in the show besides the micro motion act. And so one of the cues they had to do with these four-legged stilt walking creatures. And you could say Steve was in this costume that looked in one way like a giraffe, let's just say, long, like he had crutches for his arms, like long legs on his arms and long legs on his feet. And then he had like this big, like long neck headpiece, so it looked like a giraffe, basically.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And so what happened was, on the premiere of the show, it's the premiere, so like we really need to like pump it up, man. It's the premiere.
Yeah.
So they had these ground fog machines, and so they're just like, we got to put a lot of fog. It's the premiere. We got to pump it up. But the ground fog causes condensation on the floor, like little, like a thin layer of water film, because it's like kind of cool, because it's ground fog. Yeah. And so in the finale of the show, apparently, Pat told me that Steve takes like 2 steps out on stage on this big giraffe stilt creature, and he slips and falls over, and he knocks himself unconscious. So like basically you see this guy walk out from the wings and just go bam, and then they pull him by the stilts, the legs, they drag him back. So you just see this guy bam, he doesn't move, and then after a while it just like slides off stage because they're pulling him backstage. And that same thing happened again to a friend of mine who was in the show. There's a scene right before the clown act that's used to be called like Hell, which was basically the stage lifts went down, and then they would put really bright red light with a bunch of smoke effects, and it looked like they were down in hell, the fires of hell. And there was a 4-legged stilt creature that would come up on the lift, and then they would do the box act, the clown act in the second part of the show. And it was the same thing that happened again. It was just like the condensation, and also in Vegas, it's like kind of they have to deal a lot with humidity. Like there's a lot of, in the desert climate, they have a lot of problems with like these things. So it was like humid, it was fog, and he just slipped and fell, and he fell off the lift down was just really lucky that he didn't maybe die or get paralyzed or something. So there's a couple of stories like that with the bad luck in the show.
Man.
Yeah.
It's scary, and it's a non-trivial thing, the danger that is involved in doing these huge stunts that people do in the shows, but also in environments like this with enormous pieces of moving machinery and nimble people squeezing in here and there and getting around. And
well, we talked about like the show opening after the Charivari opening, and then it's Bébé Françoise with the big red ball. So this big red ball, I mean, it's You saw it, it's what, like 1.5 meters big, or maybe, I mean, it's freaking huge.
Yeah, it's so that when a grown man is standing up and hold his hands down, you sort of got your hand, you got to bend your elbow a little bit to have it on the top of the ball. Yeah, it's even maybe
bigger. But this ball, it's like a workout ball. I mean, it's thick rubber. It's made of thick rubber. I'm always surprised because the premise of the act is he takes the ball and throws it into the audience. And I'm always so surprised it doesn't like whack someone in the head and crack their neck or something. But what happened was at the end of the show originally, or it still happens now, but what happens is at the end of the show in the finale, they take the red ball up into the sky and they open the grid and they drop the ball from the grid down, and then then the baby's supposed to get the ball. And the first time, Pat told me, the first time they did it, they're just like, yeah, then we dropped the ball from the sky, and they dropped the real ball, and it came down and just smashed because there's lights in the floor, and it smashed the first light, and it bounced and smashed the second light, that completely obliterated the lights. And just like, thank goodness no one was standing under the ball
trying to catch it at that point.
So now when you see the show, they drop the red ball from the sky, but it's a representation of the ball. It's like basically a wire framework with cloth over it.
Yeah, more or less dropping a balloon or whatever, a giant balloon or something to...
Which again, in my mind, I think that ball in the end looks terrible. I think it's so dumb. It's not even the same size or the same color or anything.
Right.
But it's, again, when you hear the story from Pat, because like if you don't know the show and you're just like, oh, then they dropped this weird looking thing that kind of looks like a ball, but then you hear the creation story from Pat and you're like, oh, that's why they're doing that.
By the time something that weighs, how much does it weigh? 2 kilos, 2.5, 3 kilos, whatever. It's not that plastic or latex, whatever it's made of. When you drop that and it falls for 25 meters or whatever, those 2 kilos is like... It's like someone's just thrown a big thing at you as hard as they can.
So wow. Kind of fun, kind of funny little story there. But
because as you have gotten, and I think as this is going on and on, we're going to talk about you seeing it many times. But one of the things that has happened with that is that you have met a lot of these people and made friends with them to hear, which is what a lot of what we're talking about at all, what it's based on. It's direct stories or second or third hand stories misremembered by you, so the faults are with me for asking you these questions at the random day and a random Tuesday in Stockholm 10 years after the story was told and it's been molded in your head, whatever, but be that as it may, you've gotten to meet a lot of these people, and one of the things that you've said before is that it's like before you when you first saw the show and in the first encounters with the show, it's hard to grasp what it is. And partly why it's hard to grasp is that it actually is a extremely multifaceted thing. It's got many stories. It's got this trait of Dragone that is like, I'm working with images that has emotional resonance. So he starts with the story of the baby, or he starts with this, and maybe it started quite simple. Like, it's like, we're going to follow the story of the baby, and we're going to follow. But along the way, it doesn't worry him that maybe in the creation, when they had 2 months just working with the baby, what was they? Every day they had a session with the baby, and maybe they had the story there, and once it's been taken out, you're left with fragments that makes up a more dreamlike story or whatever. So all these things, there's all these reasons for why you can't grasp it. But so it becomes this whole thing with sound and lights and staging and all this that you don't know what to do with. But then how has that mystery of Mystere, has it died? Did it kill the mystery to get to meet some of the people and do the research on that? Or what has it happened?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing for me. That's why I keep going back and watching the show again and again. I think... because for me, this is a really big deal, like to try to express, because it makes such an impression on me. But basically, they say never meet your heroes, right? And I'm not sure, I mean, I've heard that expression a lot in my life. I think I know what it means to me. I don't know exactly where it comes from or exactly what it's supposed to mean, but kind of like, don't meet your heroes. You'll be disappointed if you kind of peek behind the curtain of the magic and you'll destroy the illusion that you have and the reality, it doesn't probably live up to the romantic vision that you have.
It's the Wizard of Oz. It's
exactly.
very big and amazing, but then when you look behind the curtain, it's a dude yelling in a microphone.
So it's like, don't meet your heroes. And I can say that's definitely happened to me in my life many, many times, that I've met my quote unquote met my heroes and been like, oh, okay, that's I had a different impression of things, but now I understand, and now maybe it's not what I expected. But I say there's a couple of things in my life that I did start to quote unquote meet my heroes, and Mystere is one of them, where I got to know people in the show. I got to know these people who played the characters. I got to know what they think about it on a day-to-day level. I got to know about these stories of creation, of why the show is how it is. Instead of me having my own story, I learned the real story. And you could say, which is what you're asking, did that kind of ruin it for you? Like, oh, there's this different red ball at the end, and we have this story of smashing lights, and did that kind of take away some of the fun? And I'd say in the case of Mystere, and also in the case of meeting Mycomotion, which are these two formative experiences of meeting, quote unquote, the heroes, learning the humanity and learning the reality and the kind of basic logistics of things and the day-to-day activities has only made me more impressed, because there isn't any sort of magic formula. There isn't Mystere was just made by real people like me and you, and they still managed to make this magical show. And the more I learn about the show, and the more I learn about the reality and the mechanics behind it, and kind of the mundane facts and figures, and there's not like the dressing rooms are very small, or I don't know, whatever, like pick a detail that you learn. I just go, wow. And even still, through all that, you managed to create something that meant something to someone. Like, that's so powerful to me. Like when I got to know Mycomotion, there's kind of a famous thing people say about Michael, is that when you see his hands, he has stumpy little fingers. And it's true. You see Michael's hands, and they don't look like the hands of a juggler or of an artist or an elegant pianist or something. They look like stumpy little sausages. And you just go like, how can this guy...
dude who made contact juggling, where its focus is all on the hands and the beauty. Ball and the beauty of it. Yeah, wow.
And then you learn, and you go, yeah, Michael has bad hands, and he overcomes that by practicing 1,000,000 hours a day. And you go, wow, that's even more crazy, that it's not some magical fingers or magical genetics or DNA, or he's not like a mythical creature. He's a mere mortal like us, and not only a mortal, but like he has a setback, even a physical, like maybe his hands are just like sausage fingers, and yet he has made them dance like angels or whatever you want to say, right? And so I don't know, with Michael, like uncovering the work has made me even more, I don't say impressed, but connect, or like in awe of it.
Yeah.
And same thing for Mystere. It's like the deeper I dig into these stories and these people and the history, the more I go, wow. And even then you still manage to make that show. Like even like Franco screaming at everyone, but you still managed to put it on stage, and it's even more impressive somehow.
People fell apart because of that, and someone was crying or whatever, but those who stayed, who wiped their tears and followed the directions and made it so that he was happy and they could push themselves further than they felt was comfortable, and created an image that is still relevant to people 32 years later.
Or even not, right? Like, yeah, maybe what you just said, but also maybe more just that, like, they were all on drugs and their ears were ripped off, and they didn't care that day, and they were just wearing this stupid costume, and they hated their lives. It still worked.
Yeah.
Like, there's still a magic there.
I was talking more about the actual creation of
it. Yeah, but transcending even.
And then in the everyday life of it as well. Yeah, that it continues now to capture people's imagination 32 years later, so that I saw it for the first time. So I'm like a newbie with you in the 80s. Well, 84 times, which is, we're going to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But that thing that I saw it too, and because I had been, like I said in the first episode where we talked about this, I'd seen O before Mystere. So you saw where it ended up in a way. Right. Because in Vegas, I would arguably say that O is the culmination of the grandest and most, where they have taken the ideas that started maybe in Nouvelle Experience of that has come to the nth degree of where, I don't know what have to go on, what happened there or whatever, but like that's like this. And then I went back to almost like where it started in Vegas, where this is, and seeing that, and I was well, certainly that Mystere pulled me in a way that didn't. Like I get pulled into that show with the people going around in the audience and doing stuff, the clowns first, the way that they grab you versus the way that the clowns that are in the audience is a much different flavor.
Yeah.
More detached or whatever, like that. I saw that there was a magic in there that felt also like it was still had this real strong sort of circus element, and the circus elements were still to a certain extent actually functioning like circus acts.
Yeah.
But with all of Dragone's magic around it and how it's being presented. Whilst in it's almost like the acts have become so deconstructed that you almost don't. The skills are happening, but the skills have become invisible, and like we've talked so much about, they're like people are doing Russian swing or whatever, and jumping up and doing somersaults into the water, and all this stuff is happening. So yes, that's a circus kind of act, but you almost like you don't think of it as acts anymore. It's just one big picture painted. And
and that's what I think Franco intended with I mean, he said that many times. Yeah.
So that's where he's gotten.
Yeah.
But he couldn't do that when he did Mystere. And me, who is a lover of circus, folk circus, see still the folk circus strength in that first show.
Yeah.
Yet he has added it with a mystery where you just go, this is definitely a show also about something. So just touching 5 minutes about that, because the show was first, I read, supposed to open at Caesar's Palace. Then the deal changed and whatever.
Yeah, a show was supposed to open there.
A show was supposed to open there, but with the same creative team part of it. So they were working, and then that didn't happen. So then they changed it to be Mystere. And the first show, Dragone has said it was supposed to be about mythology, like Greek. It's going to have elements of Greek mythology, Roman mythology in it. But he has also said then about Mystere that it is about the origins of the universe, or the origins of origin of life.
Yeah.
And I mean, knowing that now and then looking back at it, like I mentioned it last time when you're talking about the void that falls out in northern Scandinavian mythology, there's the void, but then on each side of the void, whatever that means, there is ice and fire, and that the world comes into being with this. So this void, when you talk about the floor dropping out and how that made you feel, like almost existentially or whatever, and then the sound comes in from the top. Now that I know, because I didn't know at the time that he had said something like that it's there. It's the story of the universe through all the mythologies. It sounds big and pretentious, but it helped us construct images that came from the plant world, a universe filled with the monsters of childhood. So that was a quote from him from the 20-year Jubilee book.
Yeah.
And he is aware that this, whenever somebody says, I just, now I'm juggling, and but it's actually about life. The origin of life. It's always it's pretentious or so. And but you also seem to have come when you say, he said, I want the people when they see you after the show to be afraid and go to the other side of the road.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid. Like, and in one way you go, it's pretentious, but then when you yourself has gone, well, the experience of it was intimidating. So for as pretentious as what it was in his mind, he did manage to channel those things into it. So do you who are an expert, because you've had the experience so many times, like, does that, the fact that they talking about the origin of life and all that, so that the baby, does that have like it's obviously the origin of human life. We all start as babies and come into a world that they don't understand. Is this a successful manifestation of these grand ideas?
Man, I know what you're getting at with the question, and I know kind of the answer that you might want to have in one way, but I'm going to answer it in another way.
Good.
Because it's so hard to say, because the show is 31 years old, and that original cast who did the original creation with Franco, I think they could have embodied some of what you're asking about for real, because they were the top of the top performers. I'm not saying that people there now aren't the top of the top, but but not all of them are. and it's like a lot of Cirque shows, they'll open with the original cast who they grab these very singular characters. Like Slava opened O.
Yeah.
Like Slava was in O, but he's not in O 25 years later.
Yeah.
They got Slava for like a year. So are the clowns there as good as Slava? No, but they're different. We don't have to compare. But just to say, it's not Slava in O right now.
Yeah.
So the people in Mystere right now, it's not the original cast, and it's I don't want to say it's a derivative of a derivative of a derivative, but in one way it is. It's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, because the show also has gone through so many iterations of artistic directors, and over the years that I've seen it 84 times, the ebb and flow. I mean, at some point in the mid-2000s, the show was bad. It's bad. And it really depends on who's the artistic director at any given point of how much they want to boost morale, how much they want to bond as a community, as a family of performers, and also how much they want to either deviate or encapsulate the original vision, because there's a lot of that ego stuff going on too. If you're the artistic director, do you want to just keep the original vision of Franco, or do you want to put your own stamp on it? And we see this happening a lot with different cast members.
Revitalize it too. Feel like you are part of something which is happening right now, not just an embodiment of 30 years ago. Yeah.
Potentially, yeah. And so all these factors really contribute to the answer to your question, right? And it's like, I think when the show first opened, it had the best chance of maybe actually representing what Franco's saying with these huge visions. These days, I think it's been completely lost. Maybe it's been found a little bit and lost again and found again and lost again. And no, I would say, and also, so there's the artistic vision of all that journey. There's also just the logistic production side of that journey of keeping a show running for 31 years, and budget cuts and financial crisis and, the world economy and all these things. Like since 2009, I think they've lost 12 performers on stage for budget cuts.
Right.
So those 12 performers could have been more embodying the journey of the evolution of life or something. Now they're gone. So like, and I know right now, for example, in the show, there's a huge push. They have these really virtuosic dancers, and there's more and more. Every time I see the show these days, there's just more and more dance scenes in the show, because that's kind of where the internal, energy is. And maybe the people with the louder voices are like, oh, maybe that transition before the clown act, we could do a little dance there. And then, oh yeah, you guys are pretty good. Because they have a strong dance team right now. And they didn't have a strong dance team 8 years ago or something, right? So all those factors contribute to the reality of the show. And I would say the show today versus the show when it opened, it's a shell of what it used to be. I'm not saying it's a bad show, but in terms of just like vision of like...
It's something else now, yeah.
It is something else now. It's turned into that sustainable, like, we're going to do this for 31 years kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very different than...
But that's also... It does also mean that, of course, it's the show is alive. It's actually changing. It's actually evolving. It's actually transforming based on the people in it.
I think in a positive way now. They have a really good artistic director now. They have a bunch of cast members who are interested in that now. You have R.J. Owens and Johnny Miles and
Slonina.
Yeah, exactly. Jimmy Slonina, exactly. They're interested in having a relationship on stage. That never happened in the show before. The pink guy, Soma Mahdi, whatever his name is, stage
comes out with a bird.
But the pink guy, and R.J. Owens, Bebe Francoise, they never had a real relationship before in the show. Before Johnny Miles and R.J. Owens was there.
Interesting.
And then before Jimmy Slonina was Brian Dewhurst as the clown for many, many years. Yeah. He didn't really have that strong of a relationship to Pink Guy, because Pink Guy was okay. There's been many different cast members over the years, but like right now we have Johnny Miles, who's friends with Jimmy, and they have a relationship off stage and on stage.
And you can feel it in the...
Yeah, and whereas before, Pink Guy was he was sometimes one of the Russian acrobats for the teeter board. Ah. And that was his like opening show cue. Yeah. And he wasn't into that style of performing like Johnny Miles is as a character, right? Like it wasn't his origin, at least. Yeah. And so then there was Brian Dewhurst doing the clown act, and at one point Pink Guy comes out, they still do the gags, blah, blah, blah. There wasn't the chemistry there. Yeah. And now there is chemistry, and not just a chemistry, but I think a dialogue off stage. like that Jimmy and Johnny have, and with RJ, right?
Yeah.
And so that trio of characters has really taken the show in a new direction, as has this new group of dancers taken the show in a new direction. And so I don't think it has anything these days to do with, and they've cut all the Alice stuff except for at the end of the show. I think maybe there's one passage now with the little Alice snail puppet on wheels, one passage. But other than that, it's just like that happens kind of in the background of maybe even the Chinese pole with the 20 Chinese poles, and then at the end of the show there's a giant snail.
Yeah,
and then that's it.
But
so it's like
this is the difference between making a movie and making a show. Because the movie was made and it's a snapshot of something that happened and that was edited together. But the show is happening actually for real every night.
Yeah.
And when somebody's cutting and chopping and trying to make the show shorter or whatever,
right,
the moments that you can cut is the bit that, because nothing was really gained by the snail head, 3-meter snail head coming out of the hole. So they go, that means the job is going to be easier for these who have to run to do that. Or whatever. So after another 200 shows, which is over 10 weeks or whatever, then you might just go, okay, that bit, can't we just cut that bit?
Yeah.
It's just a little bit much.
Well, I remember, like, maybe we'll do the last story. Yeah. But basically, so Steve Ergatz, who was in the micro-motion piece, the costume for that piece was a skirt with no shirt. Like, so they were topless, and they had, like, a long skirt to do that juggling piece.
Oh, yeah.
But then, in the Korean plank act, the Lakai, the George Washingtons, they would run across the stage in a line of in a stylized running manner in the opening of that piece. And the line, according to Franco, needed one more person in that line. So Steve had a cue where he had to, like, put on makeup and, like, put on a whole costume of, like, the wig and the thing, and he had to run across the stage one time because that line needed one more person to fulfill the vision of the show. Yeah, that's
great
gone.
example.
That's gone.
Yeah, so he go, and it's probably true. There is a world of difference between 4 people running and 5 people running. At some point it feels like it's the whole show or it's a whole thing.
Absolutely.
Before it's just a few people. And so there's something about that's like, I fully understand, but when you're doing 10 shows a week and you run around and you go, wow, just this running across the stage, which literally is 15 seconds of stage time, takes me an hour of solid working to get,
because then you had to take it all off for the other thing,
take it off again and do the next thing again. So it's like, wow. So that's the reality of being in an art form that has to happen in front of audiences, and an act that really shines and is amazing. When you change the artist who's going to do it, then it might not be the act that shines anymore. Maybe Gilligan, when he did, there was a Kidam or whatever, and he come out, and that was just the most amazing thing. But then when it's the third performer trying to do it, and he can't embody that magic quite, then the juggling act is nice. But it used to be a standout moment or whatever.
Yeah.
And part of the wisdom of that is to be able to accept that it's going to be like that. And to see the show for what it is. So when Johnny and RJ and Jimmy starts to have chemistry, that whoever is running it at the moment can see the chemistry, and each day or week, whenever they have the tapis rouges, or when they're going, can we improve this? Can we put the spotlight on that? Can we? That's what's keeping that show alive, even if it's not the original thing. It is how, as the show grows up, gets a little older for each performance, we need to adjust to the everyday life, like you and me, not just doing it for the passion anymore, because we've got kids at home and families and mortgages, and so life gets more complicated because you have lived many lives and many things. So all right, let's wrap it up there, and then we'll see where we're going, because I got more. I'm not finished with you.
I'm ready.
All right. So I hope that you have been enjoying both last month and this month. We're pursuing the theme, which I started a little bit before Christmas now, and I had sort of a theme for the months or so, because what I do enjoy is to go in depth at something. Sometimes when I listen to a podcast or I see a podcast and I see that it's 20 minutes, then maybe I'm not so interested. If I'm looking at something on YouTube and I want to understand a piece of artwork or understand, currently I've been on this binge of trying to understand a little bit more about Bob Dylan, which, strange as it might seem, I'm not such a huge Bob Dylan fan of his music, but I'm very interested in him as a person. So in learning more about him, I am finding a closer affinity with the music. But be that as it may, when I sometimes then see that it's just like a 15-minute thing where they explain his all of the 60s in 15 minutes, then I'm not really interested, because I have been watching a bunch of documentaries that are a couple of hours each, and they might be just about one album or whatever. So I am, much like Jay, someone who likes to delve in deep, and I hope that you are too, and that these themes are something that you're interested in. If it is, then please tell me so. And if you don't like it and you want to have more random episodes with all this sort of stuff, then feel free to say that too. And feel free to subscribe. And until next time, take care of yourself and those you love, and I hope to see you along the way.